Ogres are like onions.
Yeah, basically, and Tua's like an ogre, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
We're using all the Halloween-esque kind of things here.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew Chang and Justin Goddard.
Hello and welcome to the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show on the Built-in Buffalo Network. My name is Andrew Chang, and as always, my co-host is Justin Goddard. Tonight, we're going to preview the Bills' second matchup against the Miami Dolphins, but this time, the Dolphins are coming to Western New York, and it's going to be a spooky showdown in Orchard Park, which I'm really excited about. After the bye week blues and just not having football for a whole week, I'm ready for some football. I don't know about you, Justin, but I'm ready for this. And we're going to preview this game. So, our original thoughts from week 2 and how those have changed from then until now, our general feelings about each position group, and as always, we're going to give you our game day predictions. But, of course, before we get into it, you can always find us on most social media and podcasting platforms, and even on YouTube by searching up the Wandering Buffalo podcast. And we also are a part of the Built-in Buffalo Network, so definitely check them out for some great content outside of what we do here. Justin, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm jazzed to have football back this week. The bye week felt like forever. I'm ready to be back on that Sunday at 1 o'clock schedule. Sunday Halloween game. The crowd's going to be crazy. Have some weird costumes going on, so I'm pretty jazzed up for this game.
What are you going to be for Halloween, huh?
I'm going to be working.
Oh, yeah? I thought you were going to be Batman, with your, before we got on the recording, Justin was sharing his amazing Batman impersonation, so maybe we can squeak one out of him by the end of this episode.
We'll see.
How do you feel about that?
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe if I can find the right opportunity.
All right, from now on, I'm Rachel, and then eventually it'll come to you.
Perfect.
All right. Anyways, this game is going to be on Halloween Day, 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 1 p.m. So it's great for us content creators because we don't have to stay up really late recording the episodes and dissecting them. And I don't know, primetime games are fun, but I do like the consistency and easiness of a 1 p.m. game. Anyways, the weather for that day is going to be around the low 50s, so 52 degrees, cloudy. Hey, it's not rain, so I'm pretty excited about that, and I might even go to this game. I haven't figured it out yet. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, projecting the weather a week in advance for Buffalo is kind of a crapshoot. I mean, I've lived in Western New York my whole life, so right now it says 52 and cloudy. By the time we actually get to game day, we might be talking 75 and sunny. We might be talking 30 and snow. We might keep having this rainstorm that's going on right now. So if we can get 52 and cloudy, I'm all for that.
Right. Well, let's get into the position breakdowns of the Miami Dolphins, and we got to start with the quarterback room, and that obviously starts with Tua Tagovailoa. And he might actually play this entire game, which could be very interesting, Justin. I'm not going to lie to you. When Tua went out in week 2, I was legit more scared of Jacoby Brissett than I was of Tua. And that's really not I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That's just really how I felt. I think with Tua, if you can get him off, make him move through his progressions, he panics and he crumbles. And with a guy like Jacoby Brissett, he's a veteran and he's used to that kind of stuff, and he can do it. And he's more mobile than Tua, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, I don't think Tua's proven anything in this league or to his team. It's kind of how I view Vernon Butler or Cody Ford for the Bills. It's there, talent-wise, but it's not at the same time. or at least it's until it's proven otherwise. So no shade. It's just honestly the truth. I don't believe in Tua, especially with all this trade speculation going on with Deshaun Watson. I don't know. I don't believe him.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way as you when he went out the first matchup. I don't know if Tua will ever put it together in the NFL, but I certainly haven't seen it thus far. And yeah, he's had a couple nice outings the last couple weeks. But there's just something about a Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier defense when they can game plan for young quarterbacks that they really confuse them. They make them hold on to the ball too long, and they make mistakes. And if he doesn't leave that game in the first matchup, I think the score is much more lopsided than it even was. I think Jacoby gave him a better chance to win, and despite his last couple weeks of stronger performances, and now there's the constant Deshaun Watson rumors floating around, and Flores comes out and says, Tua's our guy, which in my experience is kind of like the kiss of death for a quarterback, that like during a game week you even have to answer whether or not your top 10 first-round pick quarterback is your guy two years later. Like that. It just kind of feels foreboding, and it feels like that's kind of showing what the locker room is thinking of him right now.
Yeah, he's our guy quote always feels like it's the death sentence, right? E.J. Manuel, yeah, he's our quarterback. We're going to send him for Kyle Orton.
1 week later.
or Tyrod's our guy. Yeah, we're gonna start Nate Peterman. Yeah, Tua's our guy. Sure, right. Like that meme from WandaVision? Like, yeah, okay. I believe you.
We believe you.
Anyways, let's move on to the running back room. So, I really only know Myles Gaskin. Who are the other running backs?
So there's also Salvin Ahmed, and
oh yeah.
They also had Malcolm Brown, who was just moved to the IR, and oof. Kind of the corresponding move to that is they just signed Duke Johnson from the Texans to their practice squad, who I think is really interesting for that team. He's actually a guy I was kind of interested in for the Bills, as like that if we were going to have a inactive running back that plays occasionally, kind of breaking case of emergency running back. So I don't think there's any chance we see him this week. But going forward, I think he's an interesting player for them. He's good catching the ball out of the backfield. He's a decent runner between the tackles. Kind of just wasting away on a Texans team. So who knows what he still has left in the tank. But the main guy we're talking about here is Gaskin, and I think he's a good running back. I think he didn't really do anything against the Bills in the first matchup, and being a team that just came off of Derrick Henry, and if you take one run away from Derrick Henry last week, we held them to something like 80 yards. I don't see the running backs being what's going to make or break this game for them. I don't really see them having a huge impact.
Yeah, and before I get into Gaskins, in terms of like that running play by Derrick Henry, yeah, it would have been tight if the Bills got a holding penalty there, if we can take away from that. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And this is why I kind of feel like the Dolphins don't have a good matchup against the Bills, because we just got ran over by Derrick Henry, and we just lost a really tight game with the Titans. So I got a feeling that the Bills are itching to get back on the field and prove themselves. So yikes for them, and bigger yikes for Myles Gaskin. I had him on fantasy, Justin, and I just want to say I hate having Myles Gaskin on my fantasy football team, specifically and only for those reasons. Like, either do something or don't, guy. Sheesh. Like, I dropped him for Dearness Johnson, the backup running back in Cleveland, and I'm telling you, I couldn't have been happier. He played so much better. And that being said, the Dolphins' rushing attack isn't actually bad, but it isn't good either. It's 13th in the league, but Myles Gaskin or Achman they really haven't gotten it going, and I don't know if it's really Jacoby Brissett's rushing ability that's kind of bolstered that ranking, but I'm just not really scared of this, running back room. And if it's anything like fantasy, Myles Gaskin's not going to prove anything to you. Like he's going to yield maybe 0.3 points or 4. So I have a feeling he's going to be more towards the 0.3 points this year or this time around.
It's funny that you talk about dropping him for Dearness Johnson. Because I also dropped him, and I picked up the backup to the backup to the backup to the backup. Dearness Johnson was taken. I picked up Demetric Felton.
Or Felton?
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't have a bad game either.
He put up like 15 or something like that.
Yeah, my boy Dearness.
The beauty of him is he gets the wide receiver / running back tag, so I can play him wherever.
Hey. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers here, and we got to start with Jalen Waddle, and we'll kind of move on from there. And I'll say this, I am so glad that the Dolphins picked Jalen Waddle and that they didn't get Jamar Chase. That's no shade to Jalen Waddle, but Jamar Chase right now is impacting his team. And that's not to say Waddle isn't doing the same for the Dolphins, but it's just not at the same level. And again, you could probably boil that down to the fact that, it looks like the Bengals have a quarterback. And I don't know. I just feel like Jamar was the better wide receiver. And, Waddle's good, and he's still improving. He's on the right trend, but if he puts it all together, he'll definitely be a problem for the Bills. It's just I just don't know who's throwing him the ball. Therefore, his production might not be as good as it could be.
Yeah, so this is one of the areas where I have some changes from my thoughts last time. And the first matchup with the Dolphins, we didn't really know much about Waddle. And I think the problem remains for him, who's getting him the ball. But what we've kind of seen in limited sample size is he can get that quick underneath separation. He has the speed to do a double move and get deep. And I think with the right quarterback, he can be a real problem for us. The problem is, and we've seen it with Tua throughout his career thus far, is he doesn't really seem willing to push the ball down the field. So kind of all that underneath stuff and the catch and run that Waddle's dangerous with could be so much more dangerous if you run a bunch of those plays in a row and then he does a slant and go, and you've been worried about keeping everything in front of you because that's all they're doing, and all of a sudden he's 10 yards past you. So right now he's not a huge concern to me, albeit the most dangerous weapon they probably have. But if they find a way to kind of push the pace and push the ball down the field a little bit, that could end up being a big problem. And then also Will Fuller, who we haven't seen yet this season, could this be the game he plays? I don't know. It seems like something comes up every time. But Will Fuller he's always had the talent, and the talent's never been a question. It's just a matter of injuries and suspensions and, some weird stuff in his personal life. Whatever that may be, I hope nothing bad is going on with him. But if he's on the field, that makes their offense a lot more dangerous. But it still remains to me whether or not they can or are willing to push the ball down the field. And with Tua as a quarterback, I just haven't seen that out of the Dolphins. So if they can find a way to maximize those skill sets, I have more concerns about their offense than I do currently.
Well, I'm bringing this back to fantasy, and this man, Will Fuller, I had to start him 1 week, breaks a finger, gets me like 1.3 points, and that's it, I think. And I don't know if he's actually off the IR yet or if they plan on activating him. But I would agree with you, if he comes back and is healthy, that's another layer to this onion of offense. And I use the onion reference here because I just don't think it's that great. Because at its core, it goes around Tua. Tua is the core of the onion, and he's not that good.
Ogres are like onions.
Yeah, basically. And Tua's like an ogre, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
We're using all the Halloween-esque kind of things here, but yeah, Will Fuller, if he's there, you gotta keep him on your radar. But moving on, we gotta talk about Devontae Parker, and he's had success against cornerbacks like Levi Wallace. He's a really good possession receiver. Got extended not too long ago, and it gives me pause whether or not if he'll win that matchup against Levi. And honestly, I think it's a true 50-50 coin flip with those two. Sometimes we see Levi get burned, and then other times we see Levi win and then celebrate and get a taunting penalty for it. So I don't really know. It's just a matchup that we just got to wait and see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I think Devontae Parker's a little bit of an underrated receiver who's kind of played with subpar quarterbacks. I think he could be at least a number 2, if not a number 1 in a lot of situations. Very reliable, good hands. He seems kind of off to a slower start this year, and going back and forth with different quarterbacks isn't easy, but when your two choices are Jacoby Brissett and Tua, I don't know. I feel like he's an underrated receiver, and if they really try to exploit the matchup on Levi, he could have a good day.
Yeah, moving on to the last, impactful ones, I guess. Albert Wilson and Preston Williams. And I know the Dolphins fans out there really like them. I can't remember what Dolphins content creator that Vince Taylor had on during the Week 2 preview on his show, Buffalo on the Brain. But I think he said it was Albert Wilson that the fans are like, hey, watch out for this dude. He can make an impact on the game. Well, we didn't see that in Week 2 because Tua went out. And I'm not so sure if he's made an impact thus far or, really either of those two. So we'll see if things change this time around, but I don't really forecast that happening.
Yeah, I don't think we see a ton of them on the field, especially if you get Will Fuller back in this game. Both of those players are kind of like not the same type of player, but the same type of Isaiah McKenzie role where it's kind of manufacturing touches to kind of scheme them open when you got your hands full thinking of other players. So neither of them really strike fear into me. Both pretty good players, though.
Right. Let's move on to the tight end room. And I think if I'm not mistaken, this team has 4 tight ends rostered, but there's only one you really need to know of, right, Justin? It's Mike Gesicki. And I'll say this, keep that whack hurdling skills of yours and your one-handed catch theatrics down in Miami, brother. I do not want any of that noise up here in Buffalo. Just keep your highlight stuff down there, buddy. And you didn't even hurl that dude against Jacksonville. You basically need him in the chest. But typically he does really well against the Bills. Not great the last time around. Again, Tua went out, so maybe that's a reason. But who's to say? And the one area that I feel like Gesicki isn't really good at is run blocking. And he's been on record to admit that, and I respect that, actually. I'm not good at this, but I'm gonna try. So I like his pass catching ability, but his run blocking is underwhelming for sure.
Yeah, I think a guy like Gesicki, you don't have him on your team necessarily for his blocking abilities. He's really more of a wide receiver in a tight end's uniform and, running different routes out of tight end sets. I'm not really concerned about any of their other tight ends. But Gesicki gives me the most pause out of anybody on this team and how they can affect the game. Just recently, and I mean, really as far back as I can remember, the Bills have really struggled with having a threat at our own tight end and stopping threats on other teams' tight ends. So if Gesicki's a player that they can get going, I think he's kind of a matchup nightmare for most teams. But in particular, just seeing how we've struggled with tight ends. So I mean, if I'm doing the game plan for the Bills, my first area that I'm really trying to eliminate from their game plan is the impact that Mike Gesicki has on the game. And obviously, sometimes easier said than done. He's a great tight end, but that's where I would be starting with my game plan.
Right. And we're going to transition to the offensive line here. But I just realized, I just did a quick search. The Dolphins' rushing attack is not 13th. I misspoke, so I apologize about that. And this is gonna be really, really it's gonna come full circle here in a second. So let's talk about this offensive line. You ready for this, Justin? Because this is where things get a little crazy. So ESPN puts out there, report about run block win rate, pass block win rate, all that stuff. And this was about a week ago from today, or about 8 days ago, if you want to be technical. But the Dolphins' O-line ranked 32nd in pass block win rate at 44%. Now they're 11th in run block win rate, 72%. Right? So you'd imagine okay, so that young offensive line, there's still room to grow, and they're good at rushing the football, they're just not good at passing. Well, this is a passing league, so you kind of need to be good at that. And you can't be really ranking dead last in that category and expecting big things from this team, let alone from a quarterback who is unproven, frankly. And here's the kicker. This team, although they ranked borderline top 10 in run blocking, they're 31st in rushing. So you have a line that can win their run blocking 72% of the time, but you can't run the ball. That's not good. That's terrible.
Yeah, I think we saw it with this offensive line in the first matchup too, and it's really crazy and has to be disheartening as a Dolphins fan. So you think about how many first-round picks they've had, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have 3 first-round picks on that offensive line, and it's really just not performing well. And, we saw in the first matchup, our defensive line was all over Tua, to the point where, I was to the point where, we got it. We have the defensive line. This is going to be the best defensive line in football. And then, next couple weeks, we see them kind of come back down to earth. But since that game, I haven't seen anything change with their offensive line that makes me any more concerned or, have any more respect for what they're doing in front of whoever's playing quarterback. I think it's a game where you really need to capitalize on that and really force some pressure and sacks and force Tua to make quick reads and make mistakes on that when, everybody's dropping back into zone and he thinks he sees something, and Hyde and Poyer do that lovely disguising that they do and come away with a couple picks. But I think that's the real area against this Dolphins team that needs to be taken advantage of to come out with a win.
You ever watch Super Hot Fire?
No.
Do you know what I'm referencing?
I have not.
Oh my god. The way that you described it, just disguising the plays where Tua can get baited into thinking one thing is this and then it's the other. when I said psych, all I could think is about saying is psych. That's the wrong number. And if you're a listener and you know what I'm talking about, you get it. You get it, Justin. That's your assignment.
I got
to
homework.
Look up. Yeah, it's it's so stupid. It's funny. Anyways, that's a good spot to take a quick break. So stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna wrap up this week 7 matchup against the Miami Dolphins, our second time meeting this team, and we're gonna talk about the defense. So we'll start with the safeties, and I know McCourty is out. I believe you mentioned that to me earlier. He went to IR, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So with that leaves Eric Rowe, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones, and 2 other guys that I'm sure the Dolphins don't want to trot out there. I mean, Eric Rowe is good, and outside of that, I don't really know much about these other safeties, and I just imagine that they're probably unproven. And I do know Eric Rowe is actually pretty good. He's known as the tight end racer, so you'll see him on whoever we trot out there if, Dawson Knox can't go, which I don't think he will be able to go with a broken hand, but, that'd be cool if he could. Then he'll cover Tommy Sweeney, or maybe
Give me some Reggie Gilliam.
Yeah, Reggie Gilliam.
Let's go.
Get out there, guy. Fulfill that role of yours. But, hey, maybe they won't even stick Eric Rowe on him at all, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Javon Holland's a young player who we haven't really seen much of yet. McCourty being out, I feel like, is a big blow to this defense. And, he's getting a little bit up there in age, but just having that veteran leadership and, from the safety position, working with the linebackers, it's kind of like how you quarterback your whole defense. They're back there seeing the whole field. And I think that's an area McCourty was really good at, kind of trying to help line everybody up where they needed to be. So I think out of their whole secondary, except for maybe one guy, that's about the biggest loss they could have taken.
Right. McCourty's definitely a leader, and man, he's definitely when he was paired with his brother in New England, those two were a trouble, like double trouble. Anyways, let's move on to the corner. I'm thinking Disney movie, like Double Team and all that stuff, like the twins with the basketballs, but the McCourtys. Hey, we're doing Halloween stuff. Double Trouble, Toil and Trouble, or whatever. I don't know. Let's talk about these cornerbacks here. And this is the strength of the Miami Dolphins defense. Am I right, Justin? They have Xavier Howard, who's really, really good. Picked off Josh Allen the last time we saw them. Byron Jones, who picked off Josh Allen week 17. Last time he was in Western New York. And actually, Byron Jones, I'm pretty sure he shoved Josh Allen pretty hard during that week 2 matchup, and kind of ruffled Josh's feathers. I don't think that's anything Jones wants. Like, you don't want big Josh Allen coming at you. And this defense is tailor-made to play man-to-man. But I'm not so sure if that's really worked out for them the last 2 matchups that the Bills had with this team. And let's not forget that Josh didn't have his statistically best game in week 2, so it's worked and it's kind of not worked. But I suspect the last time that Josh played them in week 2, it was mainly because Josh was maybe overthinking it or just shaking some rust off. I don't really know, but to overlook this cornerback room is a huge mistake, and I know that Brian Dable is dialing up something in the kitchen to really get the best of these guys.
Yeah, so like you said, I think this is the strongest part on their defense, if not their whole team. I think Byron Jones and Xavier Howard are right up there with 2 of the best cornerbacks in the league, and you got them on the same team. But like you said, I think the problem that they tend to run into is on on teams that can go deep with receiving options of really bona fide top tier players, I just don't think they have the pass rush to really affect the quarterback enough to get the ball out quickly. So especially when you're dealing with a quarterback like Josh Allen that likes to extend the play and really let his receivers work, it doesn't really matter how good of a cornerback you are. There's very few people that are going to be able to stay with Emmanuel Sanders, breaking off his route and changing it all up, or Diggs running across the middle. And that's just the top two options. You're not getting into the speed that we have in Isaiah McKenzie. It's just, for me, it's just two really good cornerbacks that are kind of, their skill set is lost with the rest of their defense. Those man cornerbacks like that are really going to thrive when, you have to get the ball out quick and they can jump routes and really be in the play. And after 3, 4, 5 seconds of trying to cover our receivers is where they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I agree. So let's hope that happens. I don't really have much else to add to that, but let's transition to the defensive line. And from that same report that I referenced earlier, the pass rush win rate of the Miami Dolphins is actually 12th. Good for 44% of the time. And Christian Wilkins is a really good player, so I imagine he's a part of that equation, as well as Agba, who's a really good player, in my opinion. He's got a high motor, and sometimes he can finish, so definitely someone we got to look out for. And then they have that really interesting rookie, Jalen Phillips, that they took in the first round, who's yet to put it all together. And I suspect if he's able to put it all together, I feel like I'm talking about Dawson Knox here, he'll be a really good edge defender and just a problem for the AFC East and any opponent against the Miami Dolphins. But that is yet to happen. So good pass rush run rate for this Miami Dolphins D-line, but we'll see how the offensive line of the Bills match up with them. I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one.
Yeah, so the stat you just gave on the pass rush win rate, that's a mouthful. Kind of surprises me a little bit because I know they have some good players there, but I guess I just don't really look at them in that light. But for a matchup like this against the Dolphins, who love to play man coverage, that maybe this is part of the recipe on why the Bills like to cook the Dolphins. For me, it's if you want to get one rusher free and force Josh to move around. I mean, I'm all for Josh Allen also breaking the pocket and, with half the defense's backs to him because they're trying to stay with their assignments, break off some of those big runs. Christian Wilkins was a guy that I didn't think was going to translate, and he's been having a pretty good season thus far. So
I love that guy coming out.
I wasn't sold on him, but I've been wrong several times before, so...
I like his personality. He's a cool guy.
It's another feather in my cap for being wrong.
You're a peacock.
I'm running out of places to put feathers.
Right. Let's move on to the next group, and that's the linebackers and Van Ginkel.
Van Ginkel.
Yeah, I like him. He's like the Justin Zimmer for the Bills, except he wears the Miami Dolphins uniform. So outside of him, I don't really know much. It's just Van Ginkel.
Yeah, it's Van Ginkel and then some names.
Sounds fun.
I can't place his name right now. I think it's Baker, who was looking pretty good for them, but their linebackers aren't really a strength to this team. I kind of like your comparison to Justin Zimmer on Van Ginkel. He's just a guy he doesn't stop and he makes a lot of the plays he makes because he never quit on the play. But it's not it's not Fred Warner over there. It's not somebody that I'm trying to game plan to avoid. That's kind of the area of the defense that I'm attacking if I'm the Bills. And if it's Tommy Sweeney, I don't care. I'll put Tommy Sweeney, Reggie Gilliam, run some seam routes, run some underneath crossers. I think that's
He's no Milano. He's no Edmonds. He's no Fred Warner. He's Van Ginkel.
Van Ginkel. It's fun to say
Say
at
that
least.
3 times. Yeah, could you, I just look before you go to bed tonight. Stare in the mirror and say that 3 times.
Well, if you do that,
rumor has it, if you say that, you get his hair.
Yeah, he shows up behind you if you do it too.
Yeah, and gives you the hair personally. You've earned this.
I'm gonna try it.
All right, let's move on to the last thing, and that's coaching. And I'll say this. I still think Brian Flores is a good coach, but this team has not hit on their draft picks. Let's look at their first 3 first-round draft picks. Just the first-round draft picks of the 2020 draft. Round 1, pick 5, Tua Tagovailoa. Unproven, trade rumors. Round 1, pick 18, Austin Jackson, offensive tackle. Unproven, part of a really, really bad pass blocking O-line and I guess okay to upper echelon run blocking offensive line, but I don't know if they're going his way. And then last but not least, and I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name, first round pick 30, Noah Iganobani, quarterback out of Auburn. They said like, oh, he's a pretty good man, and we saw how Stephon Diggs burned him in week 2 of that 2020 season, and he's not even a starter. Like, if this team drafted correctly, and I know this is with the power of hindsight, we could be talking about this team very, very differently, right? But we're not. If you even change that first round pick from Tua to Justin Herbert, this changes the whole dynamics of this team. But they didn't. They are not hitting on their draft picks. And I kind of feel for a guy like Flores because, he's doing the right things, but the players are not there.
So,
except for Van Ginkel.
So I kind of agree and disagree with you at the same time, and I think it's too early to make judgments on some of these first round picks. But what I will say for Brian Flores is I think as far as a coach, he has it as a leader and, the guy that can really, rally the troops and get them fired up. And I think he's a good coach in that regard. And where I think he kind of comes up short, and we kind of saw it with Fitz and Tua last year, is kind of like the handling of the roster, and maybe we're starting to see his ability to develop players. And you said, if the Dolphins take Justin Herbert, maybe we're in for a whole different matchup this week. That's provided that they also develop Herbert the same way and get the same play out of him. But for a team that's had as many first-round picks as they've had, maybe they really have missed on all these picks and they just suck at scouting and they draft all the wrong people. But to miss on that many first-round picks, I think it's more likely that they are having a problem developing and getting the most out of these players. And I don't put that squarely on Flores. He's the leader of it, but his assistants and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe he's not surrounding himself with the right guys to get the best out of these players and whatnot. But I have a lot of respect for Brian Flores, but kind of where I started turning on him is the carousel last year with Fitz and Tua, and for me, you kind of just took almost a full year out of Tua's development and seeing what you had in him last year. Pulling him in critical moments and letting Fitz go back in there, and Tua starts this week and Fitz is back next week. And to do all that and it's a different story if you make the playoffs and sell some tickets that way. But it was like a double L there, that you have less of a sample size on Tua, and you missed the playoffs, and you hurt your draft stock, and it just kind of like all snowballed for bad coaching decisions, in my opinion. So,
yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and it's hard to disagree with you, and I'm not going to. Although I will say, when he did put Fitz back out there on some of those games, he won a good majority of those. Like, think about that Raiders game where he literally his head's turned this way, but he throws like this monster of a pass. I don't suspect that Tua could have done that. He almost brought the Dolphins back against the Broncos last year, a really bad Broncos team, but that didn't happen. In any event, I agree with you. The carousel did hurt Tua Tagovailoa, but hey, at the end of the day, at least they have Van Ginkle.
I hate you.
All right, let's get to these game predictions. Who do you got?
I got the Bills in a tighter affair than the first go round.
No shutout?
No, I'll put this one at 34-20.
I don't do game predictions. I'm just going to predict a Bills win here. McDermott is 4-0 out of the bye week, and like I said, this team just took a hard L against the Titans on Monday night, less than 2 weeks ago. So, and hey, it's Halloween. I don't feel good for the Fins, so that's where I'm sitting at. Go Bills. That's where that's how I feel. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and review our podcast as well as other amazing shows that you can find on the Built-In Buffalo Network. Well, wait, hold on. Justin, give the people what they want.
Where is she? Wait.
Who?
Wait, you gotta ask me what gives me the right.
What gives you the right?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
But we're playing football.
People are gonna think that Christian Bale's in the room right now.
I know. Speaking of hockey, hey, the Sabres. I'm not a Sabres guy, but if you're looking for Sabres content, we got that over on the Built-In Buffalo Network as well. So go ahead and check them out, as well as us by searching up the Built-In Buffalo Network, or by searching up the Wandering Buffalo podcast. Like I said, if we're looking for great guests to join our show, so feel free to do so. Justin, where can the people find you and your incredible Batman impersonations?
You can find me and my incredible impressions on social media at jgods222. Maybe I'll have to make that a new thing. I'll keep working on it and put it out there, because obviously the people want more of that.
No problem. And you can find me on most social media platforms by searching up Two Changs. That's going to do it up for today's episode. And hey, next time we talk, let's hope it's about a Bills W.
Hey.
All right, go Bills.
Go Bills.